So, thank you all for joining. Where do I come from? Robots for everyone, that's for me my goal anyway. I've been doing various kinds of robotic stuff in the past, and I'll run through that in a minute. What I was hoping for today, so I'm not a NAO developer or anything. I don't have a NAO, I never programmed one. However, I did do some stuff in robotics that I'm hoping will help to give you some ideas as to how do we sell this kind of stuff, how do we get it more wider, being used by everyone. And this morning there were some nice, there seemed to be some aspirations of how to get money out of this thing, out of what you have developed already, and hoping that I can help a little bit with that. So just first, before I go into details, what did I do? I went to Japan in 2006. I was there in Tokyo Institute of Technology and making snake robots. So I mainly worked on this one, and there were some other cool robots. There was a swimming snake robot as well, pretty cool. So I'm a mechanical engineer, by the way, not even in programming actually, what it's related to today. This one is more interesting. I'll tell about this one a lot more throughout the presentation. This is an exoskeleton that after my master's there, I went to do a PhD in exoskeletons, and I was working in Cyberdyne, a company, sounds a bit from the Terminator, etc. But what they really do is making exoskeletons that are used for people to walk again. So you can imagine elderly patients. There's literally millions of people who need that stuff. And what I'm doing now, so since coming to the UK, I'm in a company called PA Consulting, and what we do is we innovate. It's a management consultancy, but actually we also have a technology group, and what we do there is all kinds of innovative stuff. We build products, machines, and whatnot, all very innovative things. But it's much more in the industry, and what I've been doing there is more on a industrial side kind of robot, but actually this one is really different, and I'll talk to that throughout the presentation. Actually, even if this is really similar to what is out there, industrial robots, etc., it's actually oddly difficult to get people to use it. So I stole a picture of the internet, obviously. So why I'm here, I think it's, in general, I've noticed and you'll probably agree, it's a better time than ever to commercialize robots and to get people to use it. You know, all the fundamental building blocks are out there, but the big question is, how do we get it out there? And in general, if you see in the whole worldwide, the experience of roboticists selling stuff, it seems to be a bit of an odd thing. People don't seem to be used to that. And there's another nice little thing called apps these days. Everybody familiar with that, obviously. For phones, it's quite easy. Everybody has a phone, and you just write an app and people use it and you can sell it. It's going to be slightly different with Aldebaran and everything, because actually people, not everybody has a Pepper or NAO. You actually have to sell the NAO together with your app. So it's all nice to have an app, but it's slightly different. And something I ran into, which is, I'll get through that in my first point, is what is a robot? But anyway. So the big question, how do we get Pepper everywhere? And a nice little thing to visualize, when yesterday the autism presentation, so he said 10 million kids all over the world. I mean, how do you get 10 million kids to use it instead of just a couple of schools? You need a business model, effectively. So that's what I'm hoping from my experience in PA Consulting. Part of what we do is we build business cases effectively for all kinds of technology, and you know, and that's basically the way to get people to buy your stuff effectively. So some more details on this one. What does it actually do? What the company Cyberdyne. So when I got there, so it's from a university. It's all very similar to what you see happening in the NAO community. So it's been developed in university, and you know, at some point you get to a point of commercializing it. They found some investors, and then in 2007 they started actually renting out this thing, mainly this one, which is the Japanese version. It's the somewhat weaker version, but and then from 2008 I was there. They started to send it out more and develop more, commercialize it more. So I got into talking with insurance companies, with all kinds of people around the world, and got a nice perspective of how do people see it. And the funny thing here is, people, like the patients themselves, if you cannot walk, you definitely want one of these. but it's $2,000 a month to rent it, and most people who cannot walk also don't have $2,000 per month. So the big trick is, how do you get people to pay for it, and who's going to pay for it? And the interesting shift in business model that that you get is that I'll get through it more and more. Normally, if you let people just sit in their chair, if they cannot walk and they sit in their chair the whole day, you get all kinds of problems. You get trouble with your skin, your bones weaken, your muscles weaken, etc. And the cost to actually help people in hospitals with those kind of problems is actually really high as well. So the whole business case and how they finally convince insurance companies is that if you keep people walking and you're much better able to rehabilitate them, even if it doesn't prove that you make people walk better, but you just keep them walking, then still the reduction in all kinds of other costs is so much more that they happily paid up for the 2,000 a month. And funnily enough, because they say we can rehabilitate people with this, but there's no clinical trials that have proven yet, not just this technology, but a lot of other exoskeletons and companies that make these things, they have not proven yet that this actually helps stroke patients or whatever to walk again. So there's not even a clinical proof yet, but still the business case is around instead of what is normally happening in rehabilitation centers where somebody moves the leg of a person, etc., by hand. Instead of that, you have a thing now that does that for you, and it's much more repeatable, etc., and you don't need to use lots of therapists, etc., because they're pretty expensive as well, and there's not enough of them already. So there you go. Totally different story now. So I'll keep repeating all these things throughout. This is what I call the universal test rig. This is what I made for PA Consulting. What we make a lot, because we invent stuff, right? And a lot of stuff that you guys might do as well. If you develop things, you start with a test rig, you start with the rough stuff, and you just want to build it up, etc. So we do a lot of that, and we normally design 2, 3, 4 weeks we need for designing a test rig, which could be really simple, just making stuff move. And now, if we have something like this, which is just a robot arm on a platform, you put a tool on it, you can program it really easily, actually, in one day, and you can get on with it within a couple of days. You got your whole test rig, so you save time, you save money, etc. Now, this is a whole different type of robot. Say, it's a collaborative robot. It's got your mind maybe slightly different from an industrial robot. This one, you don't need guarding, which is like, oh yeah, but actually it's really interesting because you can stick your face next to the robot and it doesn't matter if it hits you, then it will stop. Actually, there's sensors in there, etc. And also you can program it really easy. So there's been 4 mechanical engineers who have been able to program this in one day. It's that simple. So it's much more now about the efficiency of doing our work to our clients. We can do it almost more quicker. There's all kinds of nuances to it. But let me just, as long as you know about this, then I'll have it again in the other slides. So I've got 3 points to make today, and they all relate to like how do I get a solution, plus how does that solution fit with a business case, so to say. But how does it help some people either save money or efforts or whatever, so that they want to buy it from you? And it's a combination of what is here is perception. There's another one about how do you find the right solution. The other one is about the money. So I start with the one about perception, and just some interesting examples from the work that I did. What I noticed. So if that robot that I was using, it's just an industrial robot. It's used in industry, etc. But if I tell people within my company I want to use an industrial robot, they go like, really, it's really difficult. It's really expensive. That's the perception. That's just the connotations that come up with that. And so what I did when I sold this thing, when I needed to get my money for the investment to the partner group, where all the senior management, etc. I basically said this is a universal test rig, and I don't use the word robot. And what it does, it makes our development quicker, etc., etc. But I don't use the word robot. I don't use the word industrial robot, and actually that helps quite a bit. Similarly, with this one, with the Cyberdyne exoskeleton thing. It's all about asking the question, what is a robot? And from different people you get different answers. So if I ask you guys, then it's probably a now robot, and you say, duh, of course that is a robot. But if I ask other people who don't actually play with that and they only see movies, they might think of the Terminator. And there's other people who think about industrial robots, but this thing is none of those. And there's one interesting application that was for this one, especially the full body one, where they wanted to use it, so it never got sold as that, but they wanted to use it in hospitals where a lot of nurses, etc., they get back pain, etc., from lifting up people, because they need to lift them out of the bed, the patients, need to bring them somewhere else. It's a daily thing, it's really heavy. But so we basically said, like, if you wear that thing, you can actually lift up somebody really easily. But so in Japan it's kind of okay, because they're happy with cyborgs and whatnot. But you go to Europe and people say, like, freak, that's scary. I don't want a robot taking me out of the bed or taking my dad out of the bed, and don't want you to touch that. So it's a whole perception thing. And even with the, let's say, just the leg version that you saw in the earlier slides, which actually helps people to walk, you know, a patient is like, oh damn, I want that thing, I don't care what I look like. Other people are like, if you go to this picture, people think that this is strange, seeing people in the street walking with robots, etc. And they go like, but the thing is, if it's insurance companies paying for this, if it's governments paying for this, those are the people that you have to convince that this is actually okay and that this works. And if they have a perception of, you know, there was some perception around, like, because a robot, because it's autonomous, a lot of robots are autonomous and they do whatever they want, the robot wants. So the robot here, the robot might think that it wants to walk away with you, sort of, that perception. It's not quite what you want, because you're still in charge of what that thing does, and it's not autonomous at all. Actually, it just completely listens to what you want. So I kind of made it like, use robot or don't use robot. It's funny, kids are actually quite okay with robot generally. Adults, they have preconceptions, knowingly enough. So, you know, amongst yourself, fine. If you kind of go to customers and CEOs. That sort of type, I might want to call it different. So actually, it helps already if you say vacuum robot or walking robot, but what helps more is if in this case you say this is a thing that helps you walk, that's it. And that sells, actually. I hope I'm not going too quick so far. Let me show what time it is. Everybody happy so far? Because then this is another story. Right. The whole, it's all out in books and blah blah. It's everywhere. You can read tons about it. It's like the innovation adoption cycle and technology maturity, technology readiness, whatever you want to call it. You know, all these robotics technologies, and now and Pepper, etc. They're in the innovator stage, and you know, it's people who are okay with new technologies who adopt that. And there's a lot of things about is your robot, is it good enough, for example? Is it good enough to actually sell to mass number of people, or versus is the market ready? Or I hear people talking about the market is not ready. It's all blah blah blah. Kind of what the important thing is the innovator cycle, where actually what Aldebaran did, and I don't know if you noticed it, but all for you guys developing it, they use you as their first customers, and they basically use you to talk and to learn from, and basically your first customers is just so important. And yesterday you heard it in the Play Eye video, the teleconference, where in the final 10 minutes or something of his talk from America, he said, like, we had to go to our customers and reiterate. That's exactly what's happening. The thing is, if you're a developer, you have to kind of switch that mindset of you making your things for yourself and for your own nice little thing. But actually, if you want to bring this out wider, you're going to have to find your customers and maybe make your own community. Or what the autism guys did, of course, they go to the schools and they have their quick interaction and they integrate, develop, and at some point you can basically make that way your technology mature enough so that you can reach that bigger market. And actually, it's funny, like, you can actually have a very lousy product where it can look really bad. And the Cyberdyne thing, was it in the previous one? Yeah, the Cyberdyne thing, for example, lots of trouble. But there's people who want to use it, and that's it. And it's about changing that perspective a little bit when you want to monetize your apps, for example. It's a bit tricky to find new customers. So let me just say this one then. Curio, I don't know if some people probably know this robot from, I think it was from Sony or from another big Japanese company. Yeah, so it's kind of cute. A similar thing as now, of course. And actually what they did as well, they had the Curio in all kinds of research working in education with kids, basically in schools of toddlers and whatnot, and playing with the kids. And at some point his battery was empty, fell down, and the kids put a little blanket over him. So all the same kind of stories that you see happening with now as well. The thing is, what Sony did though, they made a whole bunch of these things. They thought, like, we're ready, but let's get this out here, and they made a whole bunch of them. And what big companies do, they need to be convinced of a big market. They only go if they can go in full. They don't like small markets. They go in or they don't go. And they were ready. They had a bunch of boxes with Curios in it, and they were about to launch it. And then they said, nah, because they weren't sure about the market. And they basically said the market is not ready, which actually, what it really is that they just didn't listen to their innovators, and they didn't have that first customer iteration, which is actually just really sad. Big companies if you expect big companies to come up with innovation, you'll be disappointed. So it's like smaller companies and communities and whatnot that develop these things. So more interesting though. Let me think. This cuts to the money bit. Where do we make money? One example, for example, printers. It used to be in the 70s or whatever. You had big giant printers, giant copiers, and you had to stand in line. It was not my age really. I had to stand in line to even make a copy or a print, and then suddenly they come out with these consumer things, and everybody can use it, and it gets all access to people, and it changes the whole market. And actually, that's what they call new market innovation, because you get new people to use it. People never have been able to use it. It's not like a tiny little change. It's not cost down. It's not tiny improvements or whatever. And similarly, if you were to use Pepper for the elderly, for example, totally new markets innovation, and they're the trickiest ones. So actually, it's not nice to be in there, but equally, if you go through your first customer, etc., then it's fine. The tricky thing about it is that people are not familiar with it. You have to convince people one by one almost to say, like, this is actually working. This is worth it. You have to make almost understand what is the solution, because it's not familiar. If you say it's a phone with a different app, yeah, sure, I know what is a phone. I know what apps, and I can really understand that. What is a new app? If you say, like, I want to use Pepper, or now even for the elderly, lots of issues you're gonna come up with. And the other thing is a lower cost solution. We don't really get that with Now or Pepper. But the other thing of real big innovations are if it's a low cost solution. In a way, printers did that when they came out with this smaller one. But a lot of that you see with robotics is more like versus human labor. So you see more of new markets. Now the interesting thing is, if you really want to go into this, it's a really amazing book. The Innovator Solution is from an HBR professor, Christensen, and I can really recommend it. Just the whole insights about how do you market a new market innovation. Pretty cool. What am I going to? Yeah, funnily enough, people still make decisions based on money, and actually, especially in business, industry, utilities, if you have a robot, for example, coming out now, which is called Exospliner, you've got these massive power lines, for example, outside. And normally, if people need to inspect that, they need to repair. They need to actually climb up there, and it's bloody dangerous. And you know, not just from the voltage, but from the height, etc. And so there's all kinds of people breaking legs and whatnot happening. But the thing is, there's this little robot out there that can actually crawl on those power lines. But the reason why companies start to adopt that robot is not because they prevent people from falling down, but it's actually the cost of the whole thing is cheaper than a human solution. Which, if you think this is sort of inhuman, then there's a few other examples later. And actually in hospitals as well, if you want to use a Pepper for entertainment, or even a Now for entertainment on a larger scale in hospitals, people still look at the amount of cost that they save, which is normally other people or caretakers, they might have to interact with these children a lot, and it costs them a lot of time, and they know exactly, of course, how much is a caretaker per year, etc. And for that matter, there's not enough of them. So people say, well, if you use this Now robot, then you basically have it's worth, sort of half a person throughout the year, and it can interact with these children. It can keep them happy, can keep them busy, etc. But it's still going to be a cost decision in the end. Another funny example recently. A cancer drug got rejected by the NHS. You might have seen it in the news because it was just too expensive. And the whole question there again is about, well, the NHS just has a limited pot of gold, and if a cancer drug treatment is £1,000 and they help people live 2 weeks longer, versus they can spend £1,000 on something else to help people live longer, etc. You can kind of guess where they're going to. The only difference what you start to see is when it's with people, as if you start to sell to customers directly, if you start to sell to a person who wants to use it for his elderly parents to keep them occupied. For example, my parents are in Germany, they're far away, and maybe I want to keep them happy or occupied. If I buy a Roomba for them to vacuum clean the house, it's all about they save their effort, they save their time, and then what you get is more of a value versus the money that they need to pay or that I need to pay for that. And it's not about the amount of money that I save. But as soon as you got business in there, the word business, then you have to start thinking about the money, which is sometimes frustrating for technical people, it's frustrating. But actually, once you break that point, then everybody wants to buy it, actually. There's another funny one about entertainment. I'm not a big fan of it. It gets to be used, robots for that, but I'll ignore it for now. It's actually probably falls in this space, but it's more tricky to find the value I've noticed so far. Actually, the Cyberdyne, we wanted to use that for entertainment as well. It never got sold as that. People wanting to walk is just a few examples of where can we actually use now, where can we use those kind of robots. So what I mentioned earlier in hospitals, where they entertain or take care of or whatever, monitor sick children, the way they calculate that is called QALY. It's a quality adjusted life year. So if it's a bit of a dubious calculation, but it's sort of the only way to go, which is if I improve your life for 10 years by 10% every year, if your life becomes 10% better every year, each year is with that solution, it's 10% better than without, and that's for a duration of 10 years, for example, then you've got one quality adjusted life year that I achieve with my solution. And that's how they compare different solutions as to which one they're going to choose. And I think, like in the US, an investment of, I think it was even like $30,000 for one quality adjusted life year was sort of the standard. That's what jumps into my mind, but it's different everywhere. So these are the business opportunities, right? With autism, it's interesting that we had the presentation yesterday. It's still in here. So what you actually get on a larger scale, let's say you want to convince a whole country or a whole set of hospitals to use that, then still you get into the money thing, and there's a bit of a substitution, either substitution or improvements of the care for these children. And if it normally takes, for example, one healthcare worker to raise 10 children to become much better, to become reintegrated into society, and now it maybe takes less people, or it takes the same amount of people but in a shorter time span with this robot, and actually you can show that you've got a solution that saves money and that makes it more effective. And in general, there's too few people in healthcare. They hardly can find them sometimes. So it's quite good. And same is with elderly. It's a bit odd, but it's kind of going there. It's kind of maybe it's coming from Japan. There's more, unsurprisingly, resistance to it in Europe. But bringing a robot to your elderly parents actually helps them to have a better life and whatnot. But they do that in you could do that in old people's homes. If there's not enough people to take care of all these elderly, then you add robots to it, and maybe it becomes better. But it literally is a substitution of care, and it's actually maybe a little bit dark in a sense. But funnily enough, there's a market for it, you could say. Interestingly, what Mike was saying, as long as it improves their life for his parents, he said he would like to have a Pepper, but as long as it improves their life while not taking away the human side, then it's all good. And he's quite right about that. So, same with education. The Korean government, I think, has on a massive scale, they're putting robots into education, and it's exactly like you guys were presenting this morning. It's the kids teach the robot, and then the robot, teaches back only a little bit, but sort of comes back with the results. And they're doing that on a much bigger scale, and it's interesting. But it comes from the government, and where they're coming from, again, to class sizes like here, they're becoming too big. They're just not enough teachers. It's all unionized and whatnot. But you can see, from a business perspective, where they're coming from because they want to make their life easier. Sometimes you can think like it's inhumane or whatnot, or inhuman. Sorry, these kind of business ways of thinking. That's definitely the reaction that I had. This Cyberdyne, for example. Telepresence. Actually, this is a really interesting one for Pepper once it's out, because you got these telepresence robots right now. It's basically wheels with an iPad on top, and you can remote control them. And instead of flying from the US to here and back on business class, which is £2,000-3,000 pounds, you just make a robot drive around in the office. And actually, £2,000-3,000 pounds is exactly what the robot is. But the Pepper, because it has arms and it can show emotion, etc. If from that person in the US, if his emotion can be measured, and Pepper sort of explains that, then you got a much better solution than normal telepresence robots. Especially if you think that like 7% is verbal communication and 40% or whatever, it's much more non-verbal than actually verbal in our normal communication. So, will be a nice one. Oh yeah, this actually, if you also think about it, Pepper, for example, did anyone see any news at all? Like bed-bound children, for example, there was some news they actually did that a kid was stuck to his bed, and they got a robot, actually one of those telepresence robots, to be in a classroom, and that way the kid could participate in the class, and it was pretty cool. And that kind of stuff, that's perfect for actually even for now. And you just put maybe a little screen with it. But Pepper definitely, elderly, again, that's maybe more personal. How do you want to use it as help, as fun? My dad as well. He's sitting on a chair. He can't walk much. If Pepper can sort of read the news and whatnot, do stuff for you. Was not good. So I just wanted to things that I couldn't really squeeze into the other stuff. I already mentioned it initially, earlier anyway. Don't rely on the big companies. Seriously, don't rely on them. Just go your own way. Make it happen yourself, because big companies are surprisingly not innovative. Also, partners that want to grow. Actually, the Emotion Robotics, the little company, that will be a great partner for anyone. To help grow, and actually Aldebaran is a great partner. There's something about if you want to work together to grow your own stuff. If you want to, as your little startup company, if you go to a big company that already is established, they have their own solution, they don't listen to you. Literally, they won't help you. If you go to an academic hospital in Germany, for example, where Cyberdyne went, those people are just they want to grow, they want to improve. Work with those kind of people. Just ignore all the people who already think they got it, but work with people who want to grow. So Aldebaran is one, perfect to work with. And actually, if you sort of go totally different thing, needs. Yeah, but one of the earlier slides. How do you find what solution do you find? Like actually, the need, so to say, of Pepper walking around your parents' home and helping them and all that. Nobody will ever tell you that they want that. It's just you have to sort it out yourself, and needs are not articulated in that sense. So this just gets it all together. Think about these three things. What is a robot? Perceptions. First customers. And then where's the money? Actually, where the money side of things, once you've got that covered, once you've got the business case actually, if you're a developer even, you can work out that business case. You can just ask people like, what do you do now? And then here's got my solution, and let's just compare the cost. And then you got a business case, and anyone can do that. You don't need to be an economic, finance guru, whatever, to do that. Actually, anyone can do that. And once you've got that covered, and you tell people that your solution is cheaper, that just helps massively. And then, because if they need to buy that, they still, even if they love the technical, the social, whatever, the human solution of it, they still have to go to their boss, who's going to ask, like, how much does it cost, and does it fit within my budget? And in that sense, it's not too different from all the other things of commercializing out there. Oh, it helps. Thanks.
Well, thanks.